Good morning.
Hey,
Good
how are
morning.
you?
What's going on? How you doing?
Oh, lots going on. This world's a busy place.
Oh, are you kidding me? There's stuff going on all
Yeah,
over the place.
that's right.
It's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out.
You're welcome.
Likewise.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. So, where are you located?
We are in Santa Barbara, California, where it's overcast. I can tell you, it's 62 degrees.
Okay. Okay.
Um, Last week we had a hurricane and an earthquake all in one afternoon.
Wow, that's modern living, right?
It is. It's living on an edge.
Man,
And for,
literally, figuratively. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy. I love Southern California. We actually went to San Diego last summer. We were at a Hallmark wedding in Pine, Colorado, and then drove over, and I'm in Kansas City, so everything on the way there is eye candy. I mean, here
oh,
in Kansas City, we're landlocked, there's like nothing really to look at, so it's
Yeah.
great when you get to that
Yeah.
part of the world. So,
Yeah. We're going to be in San Diego this weekend.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, that's a paradise down there.
it is.
yeah, it's
Crazy.
beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I love your story. And before we get into it, one of the things that really kind of, speaking of calamities that you've gone through in the last week, going through COVID was quite a thing. How did you
Yes.
survive those 3 years, and how did it change you now that we've come out of it? Hopefully come out of it. There's things that are coming out now that there's another variant, but let's just pretend like we're in post-pandemic nirvana.
Yeah.
Why don't you
Want me
start?
to jump
Sure.
in? Yeah, we had just moved to Santa Barbara. We were living in Bend, Oregon for the last 20 years, and we just moved down here and had chosen to create a co-housing with a good friend. And so we were really fortunate. The three of us were living together in our friend's home, and we basically hunkered down and supported each other during that time. And we also used the time to write the book. So it kind of that forced isolation and the cutoff of so much community we were used to being engaged in actually created almost like a monastery atmosphere in our community. And so we were able to create our intentional community in that time in a way that probably had we been in our busier lives we wouldn't have done.
I would just add to that. Um, I actually enjoyed it. I do understand the pain, the suffering so many families, especially with the loss of loved ones. Um, but for me, I enjoyed just kind of getting down to the basics, kind of getting down to the essentials. And I would also say we were busy during this time. We actually moved again once we came here, and we had to go through, we got a new house. We went through 6 closings, if you can believe, but that's typical for Southern California because everybody's bidding on the house and you don't get it until you sign the final papers. And so it's a whole different animal down here
Mm-hmm.
about that. So uh, we were in seclusion, but in a weird way, we also were balancing our act to get out when we had to come back. I think one of the hangovers for me is um, what it's done to community, what it's done to our children. Uh, as a dean, as a retired dean of a university, I can see the negative impacts it's had on higher education, but all of education. And I don't think we've quite unpacked what all of this has meant in terms of our personal freedoms as well. And so the adventure continues. It's a great
Yeah,
question.
we had a
certainly does.
we had a grandchild born the week before the shutdown,
Wow.
and we also watched Luca being raised in isolation with
Yeah.
his two parents and dogs. It really impacted his development. And he's fine now, but the lack of socialization and the cutoff from grandparents and all of that was really really different conditions in which to raise children.
Yeah, and I don't know that, like you said, we're not going to understand this. We're still in kind of a micro phase. I think when the mic, when the camera starts coming back further and further, I think we're going to understand more and more. Um, so talk to me about how you met. How did this begin? This all culminated with the book, obviously. It's been a long road. How did it all begin?
We actually met at Lewis and Clark College, and both professors, and I moved on into administration, became a dean and a provost. But um, we we just saw a spark in each other about ongoing life learning. We've traveled a lot, both of us, in our careers. Our careers have taken us to the world, and we've worked everywhere as academics, and it's just been an ongoing journey. I think with Caryl as a partner, I really come to realize how big life is and how many choices we have. And as we're in our aging years, obviously, I'm going to be 80 in September. And I see aging as a gift. It's the gift of years. And having a partner who can go through it with you and be part of the journey as she also is aging has really been exciting. And then the project itself has actually brought us closer together, as we talk about in our book. What would you add?
Yeah, I would say when we met, we recognized sort of a common soul spirit in each other. And we've had our astrologer tell us that we both are seekers, and we're always after looking for the oracle. We're spiritual seekers, and we share that. And adventurers, we love, we share love of travel and language and history and art. And we have, I would say this is the best of time for our relationship, because we have the freedom to pursue our interests. We have more time together to process what we're learning, and there's more loss and change. Aging is an apprenticeship to change, and we are changing within ourselves. We are changing on so many levels. In a way, aging is like adolescence. Your body is morphing like you do, really, and with sometimes sudden dramatic changes. And so we're partners in that and support each other in that. And we're really, really grateful to have each other, because time is limited. I don't know if I'll wake up tomorrow and Jay will still be by me. And that there's a sweet intensity that comes with that too.
I think it's just understanding the human condition that there's tragedy built in to being a human. There's not only good times, but there are also the times of sadness, times of real loss, and learning that no matter how well you think you have prepared for retirement, whatever that means, you still are going to face the human condition, and you can't hide in illusion. You think, oh, I've got a good retirement or whatever, I don't have to be, my bubble isn't going to be impacted. I think back to your original question on COVID, I mean, if there wasn't a lesson in that for everybody was on that ship. And what I fear is that there's more fear afoot and just under the surface. And I don't think that's good for a democracy. I don't think it's good for relationships. It's, again, back to interesting times, but it could be that these are the very times that we need to focus and to get to the core of who we are as people.
Yeah, I think so. It's interesting you said Lewis and Clark. My elementary school when I was a kid was Lewis and Clark Elementary.
Really?
Well, Lewis and Clark was the first funded scientific expedition that this country, Jefferson wanted that. It's a wonderful metaphor for this country, I think.
It was called the Core of Discovery.
Yeah.
It's interesting. We have a huge statue with the Indian leading the way, and it's right on top of a very central point between Missouri and Kansas, and you can see everything. It's pretty cool. So
that was that was the trip.
I remember last year my stepdaughter was having a disagreement with their boyfriend at the time, and they're pretty serious. And I was just telling him, the bottom line is this, and it goes back to what you guys were talking about earlier on. Half of the battle is finding the right person, and then you can hash it all out from there. I mean, the problem that a lot of people will face in this life is not finding that person or thinking they did, and then they have to restart. It's like, if you feel like you've found that person, that relationship, the way that you go through it, it takes away that fear. It takes away all of that. I mean, it's all work. It's definitely work. So I guess that's my next question. Is this book kind of emblematic of the work that you've went through? What has been kind of the mission? What was the birth of this?
The answer is yes, yes, and yes, and wow, yes.
Or yeses.
The birth of the book, really briefly, Jay had a dream one night about 5 years ago that we were to go on the road and to interview couples. And I woke up and I heard it, and that really became our roadmap for the following 5 years. And we believe that so much spiritual work has been focused on the individual, and couples work has been focused on the troubled couple.
Right.
But we wanted to create a body of work where the focus was enrichment of the life of the couple. And we realized our generation wasn't really raised to invest in relationships. And I would say to your kids, wonderful, you found each other, but don't assume you have the skills you need to make the most of your relationship. Be open to learning as a couple. Bring in new resources, and help your relationship, because in a funny way, relationships get lost after the marriage. There's all this, and I'm a minister, I've married many people, but when the fanfare is over, where's the support for the relationship? Part of what we're interested in is our book and our website, and that we want people to form groups and start having conversations about the issues that we cover in Side by Side.
Yeah, we're all about couples working on developing relational fitness, and that's possible to do. And I especially talk to men about this because, there's all kinds of rumors afoot that men really aren't very good in relationships. And a lot of that's true. But also in that is that men we haven't been taught about relationships. Caryl used about the word invest. In my family growing up, no one told me that I need to invest in my relationship. Everybody told me you need to invest in your career. And I got that message loud and clear. But that wasn't enough. And so what I have found in the last few years in working with the men in these couples is that men want to be in relationship. Men do want to be loved and know how to love. Men are really fast studies when they realize that vulnerability actually makes them stronger. And so there's just, and don't get caught up in the patriarchal, political, ideological pop culture that's out there. Look at it, internalize what you need to, but look at the larger picture. And what I'm finding out that when men do that, they welcome the challenges that a marriage and the opportunities that a marriage can provide.
Yeah, I think that's the dangerous stereotypes, is that a lot of people will just fall into it because that's just the way it's been.
Right.
If their parents did it, they're going to do it. So
That's
it's
right.
really about bucking the system. And that actually does irritate me about the perception of men. I'm very gung ho. I have a special needs son. I'm very upfront. I'm almost kind of like the mom. I always have been. So when I hear all of this rancor of how men are lazy and stupid and disconnected and shoving all their emotions down, which there's parts of that. I get that. I mean, men are definitely the type that suppress a lot of our emotions. We don't come out in an emotive way, the way the female brain does, but it doesn't mean that we aren't working on it and there aren't exceptions to the rule. I think that's the problem with generalizations, is they're general, and that's just the way it is.
And generally wrong.
Right, generally wrong. It's like assuming. That's what happens when you assume. So, that's the problem. But so I think that's the thing. The other thing that you said that I think is very important is that there is this perception that couples only work when there's trouble. It's not they work on it because they just have to work on it. But I think that's kind of the cornerstone of therapy. Everybody looks at therapy as, we got to put the fire out because the train derailed and exploded. It's like, it's not just we're doing it. And I do interview a lot of therapists, and I'm like, when do you recognize there is trauma? When do you recognize there is a problem? And it almost seems as though what you're saying is, it's not necessarily there's a problem. It's the fact that relationships take a lot of work.
I like the word enrichment. Just ongoing development. I mentioned relational fitness. What does that mean? And listening skills is part of it, but honestly, if it's just listening skills, that's not going to get you all that far. It's helpful. We talk about a couple of things. Well, actually, we talked about a lot of things, but two dynamics that we saw in the couples that we interviewed that we just had to lift. One was the ability to welcome the stranger in each other. And to rather than, and just to see as part of growth, we're constantly learning and changing. And rather than see the other partner's growth as a threat, see it as something that, wow, this is pretty interesting. You know, you had this insight, you read this book, you have this friend, and go in that direction. And the same thing comes back to you. And when we welcome the stranger in each other, that helps to keep a relationship vital. It helps to keep it creative. It helps to keep it anew again and again and again.
Yeah, you're supporting each other on your growing edges. Another really, I'm just been writing about this that surprised us that came up was in couples relationships that the one of the most important things you do is do your shadow work. And in a one-on-one relationship, no one knows you better than your partner, hopefully, if you're if they're paying attention. And when you get triggered and you're coming out of your trauma, you're coming out of your projections of the things in yourself you don't want to look at, and you're projecting it onto your partner. One of the skills you can learn is to catch those projections. And in a it's not always easy, because when you're on the receiving end of the judgment or projection, it's easy to get defensive and fall into the trap of arguing with their projection instead of mirroring it back to them. And so that's another, it's a subtle skill, but it's really important.
So when you were children, we all have dreams. What was your dream of either being a professional or the relationship you envisioned?
Well, for me, if you go really far back, I wanted to be a fireman. I mean, honestly,
Yeah,
I had
of
a red
course.
truck and everything else.
That's right.
I was always career focused, and that was my family of origin. Go out there and conquer the world. Get your education. It was more of that was the message, that the world's a dangerous place, and if you don't take care of yourself and get the right skill set, you're going to be. No one ever said this, but the implication was you're going to be a loser, and my family was loving. I mean, they were, we had our issues, but I wish I had come from a family that had talked about the inner life more. It talked about the emotional and feeling aspects of life more. I think that would have helped me. And I try to do that now with my grandchildren, so yeah. What would you say?
Well, I love that question. So I was born in 1950, and grew up next to Disneyland in LA.
Wow.
And I grew up in Pasadena. And my fantasy was in my early years, and this is pre-women's movement, to marry a minister. Because from early age, I had this passion for spirituality. And it didn't occur to me to be the minister until later.
Yeah.
But my early fantasies, and also to be a writer, which because those are the two things I enjoyed doing. I loved books and writing and pencils and schooling and all that stuff. But it didn't occur to me I could be a professor or I could be the minister. Which I turned out to be. I thought I should marry one, and
That's interesting.
a really different. See, we're in a different generation. We're
Yeah.
the baby boomers, and really a transitional generation than you guys are.
But that's what's great about the boomer generation too, is that we're actually in liminal space. We're in that portal. We've got one foot in the old world, hopefully, and one foot in the new world, the one that's unfolding. So it's on the edge of the next paradigm.
Mm-hmm.
And so we take delight in watching our kids and their families and just seeing where they're taking it.
Mm-hmm.
This is where we've gone now. Where are you going to take this? And it's actually been very gratifying.
I'm a Gen Xer. I just turned 50 last year. So
Good for you.
I feel as though I'm kind of like that movie where they were in black and white and they finally got in color. It's like, I feel like,
Yeah.
because we were on the cusp of, there's a lot of things we did when we were younger that should never have been documented like it is now. Like just,
Sure. Right.
nothing too nefarious or weird, but just, you're just living your life. And it's like, now it's the theater of, judgment. It's a different kind of thing. But it's interesting you mentioned Walt Disney. Walt Disney actually grew up in Marceline, close to here. He had his first
right.
art studio here in Midtown, Kansas City.
Oh,
Yeah, so I theoretically grew up next to that whole idea of Walt Disney and all of that. So, um, what do you like the best about marriage?
what do we like? To me, marriage is a sacrament. Meaning it's a sacred container that holds us together in a commitment, and it keeps our feet to the fire of living our lives together in ways that both of us can become the best, most developed human beings we can in this short span of life that we have. And that container of marriage and the sacrament of marriage and the commitment of marriage is a covenant. You're going to stay in this, and you're going to hold this space for yourself in the next generations. And it's very meaningful. Otherwise we could just live together and
Well,
done
that
it too.
that could be fun too. I mean, I certainly our marriage has been an adventure, and we haven't been bored with each other at all. And part of that is we run into troubles, and when we do, we always get help and unpack it, see what there is, and it always goes back to our family of origin, and then we figure that out, and then we keep working on it. And I like the mystery of it. I mean, if you were to ask if there was one word, it'd be mystery, the mystery of relationship, how it unfolds, the surprises that happen actually daily. Like just since we've been interviewing with you, this is the first time I've ever heard Caryl said when she grew up she wanted to marry a minister. She never has said that to me. So that's just that's fun. I can
Yeah.
work with that.
Wow.
That's the thing that's so good about doing these podcasts, is that it just does unearth things that maybe you haven't thought about that aren't
Right.
up front. It's like those late night shows will grab couples and they'll say, "Hey, what's your favorite thing?" or "What's this?" and they don't have any idea. Thankfully, when I think about those questions, I think I got my wife pegged, but there's certain things that I just don't know. And she still says, "I had no idea about that." And it's like, it's going to take time for you to understand. I can't unravel everything all at once. Sometimes
Right.
that's the beauty of being with somebody. You let it kind of, you don't, unless you're really ambitious, you don't crunch right into the Tootsie Roll, the sucker. You got to give it some time. You got to go to get to the center, and the center takes time. So, you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
maybe a metaphor. So, speaking of getting to the center of something, tell everyone out there why they should get Side by Side. Sell it right now. Why should they pick up this book, and where can they get it?
Well, let me start with the where. The book is called Side by Side: The Sacred Art of Couples Living and with Wisdom and Love. And our website is sidebysideaging.com. That's
We encourage
sidebysideaging.com.
everybody to go on our website.
Yes, these are 13 teaching stories that are true. The couples allowed us to use their names. We spent we interviewed and filmed for 6 hours for each couple, and it's distilled wisdom from people who've been together often a long time about relationships, about aging and spirituality. And at the back of the book, there's a reader's guide. So if you want to get a couple of couples together in your house, you can read the stories together and use the reader's guide and ask questions and have deep conversations. So the reason you should get it is we really think there's a lot of wisdom, and it's fun. They're really interesting. And our website has clips of each interview, so you can see the couples talking about the beatitude. We put a beatitude with each couple. So the feedback we're getting is people are taking their time. They're reading the book aloud to each other, and are having conversations they hadn't had before about their relationship, kind of like a podcast,
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
revelatory for sure.
What would you add,
I
Jay?
would add that these couples are inspiring, and it's an upper, and the potential of what marriage has always offered all of us. You can see it unfold, and it didn't unfold without pain. It didn't unfold without drama and lots of circumstances, but it did unfold. And you see these stories, and they're wonderful. And I would add, is what our publisher told us, there are really 14 couples yes, we did interview 13 couples. We went to their homes, interviewed them in their homes, but the 14th couple is us, and a lot of us is in there too. And we're very honest. We don't set ourselves apart as being anything special. It's actually, we were more humbled than anything else. I guess our main concern was, would we be able to get these stories of these amazing couples out, and could we do that? Really give honor to them. And so I would say to the reader, these are stories that will challenge you. These are stories that will welcome you, and these are stories that you can learn from.
So who is your favorite couple besides yourself? Who's your favorite couple?
In the book?
No, just in general in life. Who do you think about as being a couple that you just love? It could be Romeo and Juliet. It could be, I mean, like, who's your favorite couple?
Well, for me, that's easy. It'd be Jimmy Carter and his wife.
Yeah.
I just think they have lived a life of confrontation, of ups and downs.
Yep.
They've left no leave unturned, and I think they are the best of friends and love each other deeply. And I've always held those two up. How about you?
Well, mine's more personal. The college I went to was Whitworth College, and my favorite couple was the president and his wife, who let me into their lives. And they drove me once to Southern California from Spokane, Washington.
Wow.
And the whole way they were reading stories to each other that they were excited about, or news articles, or they were a learning community. And that left a really deep impression on me. They were so generous to me, and with me, just a student. That's the only way he knew me, and I needed a ride.
Yeah.
So that loving container in their relationship just so inspired me.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, Caryl and Jay, you're an inspiration to others. Thank you for taking time out, opening up your world for a little while. Best of luck with everything. I appreciate it.
And
Thank
to
you so
too.
much.
Thanks so
Great
much.
to meet you.
Really nice
Great to
talking
meet you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Send my best to Southern California. I love it out there.
Okay, come back. Come see us.
Absolutely. I'll get an in and out. I miss it so bad when I get back. I love it there. All right. Thank you. Have a great day.
You
All
too.
righty.
Be well.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Later. Bye-bye.